Hello and welcome to One India News, and I am Akash. And of course, today is the polling day. And when I say the polling day, well, the polling just happened today in three states. Second phase of polling happened in Uttar Pradesh, and apart from that, the elections also took place in single phase in Uttarakhand and Goa. And the BJP basically, has government in all the three states. So it would be a big day for BJP also when it comes to the result day for all the other states also. But yeah, today we are going to concentrate more on these three states, especially what the voting has been in Uttar Pradesh in the second phase of polling, and of course in Uttarakhand and in Goa. Also joining me today is our serious correspondent Vicky Najapa from Bangalore, and we have got Dr. Sandeep Shastri also. He is a political analyst. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me on this discussion. Dr. Shastri, I will start with you. So, keeping in view that we saw not that amount of a huge voting happening in the first phase of the polls, if we compare from the past two polling that happened in Uttar Pradesh. Today we saw that Saharanpur, which is one of the biggest seats for Samajwadi Party, that also went for polling, and few other and 55 other constituencies have voted today. Until evening, there was a very good percentage of voting that has taken place. So, how do you see that?
At the outset, Akash, it's important to underscore the fact that there is no empirical evidence to show that higher turnout supports X party or lower turnout supports Y party. It's a fact that there has been a much larger number of voters going out to the booths, and this is not just the report from Uttar Pradesh. I think the report from Goa also mentions that the voter turnout has been significantly high. Now, if I were to take Uttar Pradesh, today important areas which were considered the bastion of the Samajwadi Party have gone to polls. But let's also remember that if you look at the seats which went to the polls today, and how did these seats perform in the 2017 elections 5 years ago? Many of the seats that went to the polls today had seen the BJP getting huge majorities last time. So both these factors need to be weighed in, that these were seats which the BJP did extremely well last time, which of course is no indicator that it may again do well this time. And these were critical seats for the Samajwadi Party also. I think a lot of water has flown below the bridge since 2017. There are critical issues this time in Uttar Pradesh. The BJP is not challenging the SP's record of performance, but the BJP is defending its record of performance. But it's interesting to see a lot of BJP leaders are focusing on what were the problems with the SP and the Congress. I wish there had been more focus on the good things which they would have liked to project of their government, whereas the focus was much more being critical of the other two players. This is typically a challenge which a ruling party faces when it is trying to defend its record. It's sometimes a strategy to go after your opponent, keeping in mind the past record of the opponent. Now, the fact there is another pointer which I would like to bring into the discussion.
Right.
If you look at the Lok Sabha election of 2019, if the BJP did extremely well, it was because of the non-Yadav backward caste vote. There was a huge transfer of that vote to the BJP. Is the BJP going to retain this vote is critical for today's round of elections. Because you have had some desertions of leaders belonging to these groups from the BJP to other parties. But then a desertion of a leader need not necessarily mean the desertion of the people belonging to that social group. So would the BJP be able to retain the support of the caste groups which voted for them in the last Lok Sabha election? And finally, are you going to see in this election a minority consolidation? There are multiple stories. You look at the story in Bihar, you look at the story in Assam, you look at the story in West Bengal. Sometimes majority consolidation led to minority consolidation, like in Bengal. Sometimes majority consolidation did not lead to minority consolidation, like in Assam.
Right.
Sometimes majority consolidation again did not lead to minority consolidation in Bihar. So I think, how does the minority vote play out, especially given the fact that in UP there are multiple players who are seeking that minority vote?
Very true.
Is
Dr.
there
Shastri, I want to
likelihood?
ask you one more thing over here, because like today, as we talk about the minority votes today, and a few of the seats that are going today for polls. So a few of them are like the strongholds, and then they are also seats of the minority over there. And especially when we talk about minority, let's be honest, we're talking about the Muslim vote bank over there, and that is a huge vote bank that counts upon the Samajwadi Party. But there have been a lot of these pre-poll ground reality check reports. They are saying that there is most of these Muslim vote banks are done with Samajwadi Party. They are done with the Congress. They want to side with the BJP. Do you see that in these kind of votes, and especially coming on what has happened in Karnataka regarding the hijab row, which has escalated and snowballed into a different ball game altogether. And of course, now it has become a pan India kind of a protest. Do you see that today, if we talk about like Muslim dominated seats going forward, can we see a sway back to the Samajwadi Party, back to the Congress Party, and that sort of majority that people thought that they will get in terms of, or the BJP thought that they will get in terms of on these seats, will not happen?
Akash, I would not focus on whether the minority vote is going to Samajwadi or Congress or BSP or whom. I think the more critical question is, would the minority community in UP do what is called a strategy voting, which is deciding on voting for a party slash candidate who they think can defeat the one they want defeated. You see? And we have seen this happening in past elections. Partly because of majority consolidation, as a backlash, you have that happening. Partly as a response to developments that are going on around it happens. So the question or the issue I'm looking for is, have the minorities taken to strategic voting this time in terms of looking at whom they would like to vote for in order to defeat whom they want to defeat? So would they be doing strategic voting, or would they go back to voting parties like divide their vote across parties, given the fact that you have a multi-party contest in Uttar Pradesh? Now, and also let's bring in another factor. You have the AIMM also contesting seats in Uttar Pradesh this time.
Correct.
And their role in being able to split the Muslim vote is also something that's going to be keenly watched. So it's not an easy terrain to really decipher in terms of what's happening. But I think for me, these are the ponderables that we need to really look at in terms of the minority vote in Uttar Pradesh this time,
Correct. Correct. Thank you,
especially
Dr.
the
Shastri,
round
on
that we're
that.
having today.
Yeah, yeah. And I will, yeah, Vicky, please come in. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, the thing is, just going a little away from UP, I would have a question for you on UP. You know, how much would the job market as well as the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic matter in the election? But I would want to go to the state of Goa to see that, what do you think are the BJP's chances, considering they're fighting an election without Manohar Parrikar? So, there's been too much of focus on UP, I know that. But when we go to Goa, uh, an election without a Manohar Parrikar, how do you see it, sir? And again, I'll come back to UP also. There was this report saying that jobs, jobs, jobs. That's the only thing that is going to matter in the UP election and the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in the second wave. So, what do you feel, sir, about these two issues?
You see, handling the COVID-19 pandemic is going to be something that the people are looking at. And generally, surveys are showing that people felt that the pandemic was handled reasonably well. If you go back to the last elections, last round of elections, what saved the Anna DMK in Tamil Nadu from from being wiped out was the fact that a lot of people believed that the Anna DMK government had done reasonably well during COVID-19. So, uh, if you go across the states, there is generally, and I'm not talking of the political tutu meme on this. If you grow across the states, there is generally a feeling among the voters that governments have made a sincere attempt to try and respond to the pandemic. And especially in round three, the third wave, I think there has been much more positive responses. But Vicky, at the end of the day, what do people see when they go into that room to vote? And when they see that EVM machine in front of them, what is it that finally makes them decide? Because this has been a puzzle we have not been able to fully unwrap. You ask people what is the biggest problem facing you, unemployment, price rise, and all that, and therefore you see, oh, this government is going because people are so upset about unemployment and price rise. And then you have people voting in a way which is very different from what you thought would happen, because if price rise and unemployment was the issue, the government in power should actually go in that sense. But then it doesn't go, it gets another term. So I think when they enter the polling booth, there may be a totally different set of factors which finally decide how you're going to vote. Now, Goa Wiki is something very interesting. A few data points. 24 of the 40 MLAs who were elected last time have changed their party. 24 of 40. And some of them have changed their party multiple times. Of the 17 MLAs that the Congress had 5 years back when the election results were announced, only two of them are with the Congress now, and both are former chief ministers. The other 15 have found their way elsewhere. Now, in a state with a small assembly of just 40 seats, and when you have an authentic multi-party system in that state, which creates verdict where no single party gets a majority. You see, these this fluidity in the result is something that is very clearly seen. Everybody said last time in Goa, the Congress won the election, but the BJP formed the government. You see, the Congress emerged, let's remember, as the single largest party, 17 out of 40 seats, but the BJP formed the government. So in small states where there is a multi-party competition and you have situations where a single party is not likely to get a majority, you have all types of political gymnastics happening in that state. And I suspect Goa would again be some such state. You have the Congress, you have the AAP, you have the BJP, you have other forces. So I think be it Goa, be it Manipur, there is an element of fluidity in terms of the party structures in the state. And there is no clear race in these small states. And when you have less number of seats and no clear race, you are bound to have the type of complications that you have in Manipur and Goa.
Right.
Sir, sorry, Akash. One more question, sir. Just coming down to Punjab now on this one. You think Okay, AAP seems to look like it's going to make a dent out there, but then I'll come specifically to the Congress. Do you think announcing Charanjit Singh Channi as the chief ministerial candidate was, after all, a good idea? Because considering you know what a blabberbox Navjot Singh Sidhu is.
Now, Vicky, you use the right word. Will AAP dent either the Congress or the Shiromani Akali Dal or the BJP alliance? Uh, Dent it will, but how much will it dent is my question. I think the Congress gamble was a little late in the day. Let's remember that uh, Punjab has had only two non-Jat Sikh chief ministers. One was Gyani Zail Singh years ago, and now Mr. Channi. Let's also remember that Dalits constitute one-thirds of the voters in Punjab. One-thirds. And there are as many as 54 constituencies in Punjab where they can make a difference. So that explains Rahul Gandhi's announcement. But did that announcement happen a little late in the day? I think it was an important announcement, keeping in mind the Dalit factor. And the fact that you were the ones who made the first, you made a Dalit chief minister. Now, that was critical. Let's remember one more thing. Jat Sikhs have been strongly with the Shiromani Akali Dal for many years. But Jat Sikhs were also the ones who were behind the anti-farm protest. And the Jat Sikhs remember the fact that the Shiromani Akali Dal in the beginning sided with the BJP government on the issue. So, will the anger of the Jat Sikhs on this issue impact the SAD BSP alliance is an important question. So, I think the caste permutations and combinations which will come up. Remember also, Vicky, both Aam Aadmi Party and Shiromani Akali Dal have said, if voted to power, our deputy chief minister will be a Dalit. Both have made that commitment because both of them have announced a chief minister candidate. Therefore, the deputy chief minister is only a position that is vacant. So both have said deputy chief minister will be a Dalit. So this Dalit vote is going to play a crucial, I think, 2, 3 factors. Dalit vote, the Jat Sikh vote, especially in terms of the response to the farm laws issue. And of course, thirdly, the type of split that will happen between the 3, 4 groups. I think it's very clear that Punjab is going to have a verdict with no party getting a clear majority.
Right,
Given so
Dr.
many.
Shastri, yeah, and like you said that there are so many players, and everybody is bound to get some kind of a vote there in Punjab. But very interesting choice by Aam Aadmi Party putting Bhagwant Mann as their chief ministerial candidate, because there were some more suitable candidates that could have been portrayed as the chief ministerial face. As if we go with Aam Aadmi Party, what they choose in Goa. So they had a very clear kind of a candidate over there. But now when we come to Bhagwant Mann, he is more of a controversial figure. We know that regarding what has happened with him leaking that security footages of security parameters of the parliament and everything. So those kind of things. But now that he has been portrayed as a chief ministerial candidate, do you think that somewhere down the line it might hurt the Aam Aadmi Party in terms of getting votes in the state?
Akash, you and I strongly believe that, and rightly so, that what he did in terms of leaking out footage was something grossly wrong.
Correct.
That's because we understand very clearly issues of national security. A, it happened long ago, and public memory is short. And B, what are the issues that define and decide public sentiment around the time of an election? Uh, Bhagwant Mann has been a face of the party for quite some time now. When it was down and out in the last Lok Sabha election, also he was a critical face of the party. And he has been a stable face of the party. So I think it would have been strategically very wrong for the AAP when it was announcing a candidate to think of anybody other than him, because he had been the face projected for long. So I think that factor would have to be budgeted into any analysis as to why the AAP thought of him as their chief ministerial candidate face.
Correct, true. And now let's move towards Uttarakhand also today, because the elections have taken place in Uttarakhand also. And over there, there is a very interesting, if we see the fight over there, Vicky and Dr. Sandeep, that on one hand you have Pushkar Singh Dhami, who is a new CM candidate from the BJP. He just got 5 terms, and on the other hand you have Harish Rawat, who is a seasoned politician. He has been a former chief minister of the hill state. How, Dr. Sandeep, how do you see this contest between these two parties? Because these are the two major frays, and Uttarakhand has been very famous of not repeating one government twice. So, how do you see that? What are the chances of BJP fairing? And of course, with a lot of infrastructure projects now being announced for the hill state.
I think the result in Uttarakhand will depend upon which of the two parties is able to hide their skeletons in a more effective way. And by the skeleton, I mean here disunity in the party. I'm not talking of any other skeleton, disunity in the party. I think both the BJP and the Congress are mired by internal contradictions. Uh, and both parties have been trying to deal with it. Uh, the Congress has put up its old war horse to lead their battle, and on the face of it, it's clear that he is not getting the total support which the party was hoping he would get from all the other factions. So that has it's like a lone battle that Harish Rawat is fighting alone in a sense. On the other hand, in the case of the BJP, when the ticket distribution happened, you see a lot of unhappiness. But given the fact that the BJP is the ruling party both at the state and the national level, while that bickering came out in the open, a lot of it was below the surface. And I think the BJP is hoping that what will help them sail through is the role that their central leadership is playing as part of the campaign. In Uttarakhand, the face of the BJP is not so much their chief minister, but the face of the BJP is the central leaders. But they are, of course, projecting the chief minister that they have. Did the chief minister have enough time to be able to make sure that his face and his achievements were something which people could recognize? Will be something you will see when the results are announced. Now, so you see two different strategies, both parties mired by internal discord. BJP trying to use its national leaders as its election mascots, if you may, and the chief minister also somewhere in that picture, and hoping that the national leadership will be able to sway the results in their favor. And on the other hand, the Congress relying on its local leader with support from other leaders. Remember, Chhattisgarh chief minister has spent a lot of time in Uttarakhand, has been managing the campaign for the party there. So there are others also. So I think I go back to my point, which party is able to contain its disunity more effectively will be the one who would win this election.
Correct. Yeah, Vicky, you had something.
My add something, that, sir and I used to discuss a lot during the Karnataka elections which were happening here. And he had told me that one thing is that he felt that the Prime Minister was roped into the campaign very late, basically, in Karnataka. One. So the thing is, every time I talk to someone in BJP and you say, ask how the vote is going to swing, they say, wait, let the PM's campaign start, then everything will start. I'd like Dr. Sir's view on that.
No, undoubtedly, the Prime Minister is the one that the BJP depends on for being their main vote catcher. That's why you'll notice today, as the second phase of voting went on, the Prime Minister was out campaigning in areas where third phase was voting is going to take place. And throughout the day, the television was focusing on live broadcast of his election rallies. This is like free publicity on the day where voting is also actually happening. And this is a trend which, I mean, uh, nothing prevented the Congress and other parties from doing the same. But the BJP's capacity to calculate how to reach out to the people is something that I think we have seen for the last 7, 8 years now. So there is no shadow of doubt that the BJP campaign, even in state elections, rests largely on the shoulders of the Prime Minister. I would add a point to that, and this is what I think the Bengal and Assam elections show us. While the Prime Minister is the face of the BJP campaign and garners a lot of support for the BJP in that way, that phase also requires a supplementary state level phase, which is popular and effective. You had Sonowal and the current chief minister of Assam as the two faces in Assam, whereas you did not have such a face in Bengal. And you had a very strong face on the other side. And therefore, that local factor comes in a big way. Now, similarly in Uttarakhand, while the Prime Minister's campaign would have definitely helped the BJP, it ultimately will also boil down to how do people perceive the local faces, because at the end of the day, they are the ones going to be chief minister or lead the government in the state, and that becomes a critical factor.
Correct, very true, Dr. Sandeep. What you said there, that that the local leaders, they play a very crucial role. Yes, the Prime Minister can definitely come in, do his campaign, and try to sway the vote of the people towards his party. But now coming back to Uttar Pradesh, as you aptly put, that all the parties today are also campaigning. Be it Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he did few rallies in Uttar Pradesh, then he flew to Punjab and he did a rally in Punjab also in Jalandhar today. But Congress is also trying their level best to sway the voters in all of this. There have been a lot of commentary on social media also as far as Congress is concerned in Uttar Pradesh. People are saying that they might not even get one single seat this time around because the major vote share might even be taken by the BJP and the Samajwadi Party and the BSP. So, how do you see this? Do you see Congress, ending maybe on the fourth or the fifth podium when it comes to the result? Because it's too early. Definitely, the polling is going to happen in 7 phases in Uttar Pradesh. We are sitting today, on the second phase of polling. But yeah, but the way that the Congress has been, working in Uttar Pradesh, it feels like that the party is, feeling lackluster somehow.
Uh, Akash, it's not fighting for the fourth place, it is at the fourth place, even now. See, if you look at the seats, it's already at the fourth place. It's, I mean, BSP, SP, and BJP are much above it, so it is struggling to retain its fourth place. Now, will it
And
open its will it
I want to
open its
ask you one. So, Dr. Sandeep, sorry, I'm cutting you. Now you put that it is fighting for the fourth place. Do you think that Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi will be able to, save their seats?
no, see, I wish I was an astrologer who could predict to you what happens 2 years from now. But I'll come to that point in a moment. But I thought I would make another point with regard to UP. Uh, I think the Congress is having a challenge in UP in terms of asserting an identity. You see, what is it that you want to present to the voter as your USP? You brought in Priyanka Gandhi as the general secretary there, and she led the campaign. She made certain very interesting points. But again, was it too late in the day? I remember having said in 2017 that if the UP, the Congress has to start its campaign, it has to start its campaign for 2022 in 2017. The day the results of the 2017 elections were announced, should have been the time when the strategy for the next election should have started. Now, the real work within the Congress has started last 6 months, 8 months, and not really before that. So, how can a party hope to assert itself in a state where it is already in the fourth position without really planning a strategy well in advance? So what has happened is the Congress has allowed the principal battle to be between the SP and the BJP, with the BSP having its own small pockets. And of course, I would not say that the Congress is in a position of not being able to open its account in this assembly. I think it will still have a rare seat here or a fluke seat there, which it may win. But of course, like Tripura, you may still end up in a situation where they get from being you come down from the major opposition to being zero. Now that could happen. Uh, Going to your next question on the uh, to 2024, I think it will lot depend upon how the present UP election goes. Uh, I think I think Rahul Gandhi will be more comfortable fighting from Wayanad than trying to make a pitch in UP. And it would be interesting to see the stand that Sonia Gandhi takes, given the retreat that she has been showing from active politics, or whether that would be an excuse to say that somebody else will contest that election. I think if the party feels that it's going to be a tough contest, I don't think they would feel that. That's my own reading of the situation.
Sir, if I were to ask, how much of a factor, we've spoken about the role that the Prime Minister is going to play, and there's been so many rallies by the Home Minister also. But Yogi Adityanath, as a leader, has got a complete standing of his own. I mean, he is very popular, and he's got his own. So how much of a factor he alone would play in UP?
See, before the campaign started, it was felt that the entire campaign would be led by Yogi. You even had the Prime Minister saying that he's Upyogi and not just Yogi, you see. And then you had the desertions from the party. And let's remember the main focus of the desertions was that the Chief Minister has not focused on the socially marginalized groups. The criticism of these leaders who left the party was that the government had been a dominant caste, upper caste government, was the charge. Now, and given the fact what I said earlier, in the Lok Sabha election, you had a huge shift of the non-Yadav backward caste vote to the BJP. Now, this became a major worry for the BJP. That these desertions had happened and the image of the chief minister was slightly impacted. That's the time when I think the BJP strategists decided that the prime minister would once again be the focus of the UP campaign. So while Yogi Adityanath continued to be an important face of the party, you will notice the emphasis that was given to the prime minister's campaign. And that was basically to offset any possible adverse impact of this desertions from the party, and more importantly, the charges that they made on the neglect of the socially marginalized groups, and to to prevent any damage which comes from that perception, I think was the strategy they adopted. So in that sense, it was truly a double engine campaign, not in terms of being in power both at the center and the state, but double engine in terms of the prime minister and the chief minister together being part of the campaign. So I think somewhere as the campaign began, the prime minister's role became very critical in their campaign in UP.
And talking about Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Shastri, and talking more about Yogi Adityanath, you being a political, analyst, and having a keen knowledge about the politics, how do you see these 5 years of Yogi Adityanath being the chief minister in the state, especially because BJP is, counting on a law, and law and order is one of the biggest thing that UP has been, counting upon as far as Yogi Adityanath's tenure is concerned as a chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. And then they say that there have been no writings in Uttar Pradesh during the tenure of Yogi Adityanath. And of course, when 5 years ago in 2017, when Yogi Adityanath's name actually came up as a chief ministerial candidate after the BJP won the elections, it was a huge surprise for everybody. So, how do you see that these 5 years of Yogi rule has been in Uttar Pradesh in terms of politics?
I think if you see the balance sheet, political balance sheet, there are pluses. There are undoubtedly pluses. And you have mentioned some of the pluses. Some would argue the law and order situation. Some would argue the increasing cleanliness of key cities, the way transformation of cities like Varanasi has happened. No, there are several things which are said which would be positive. One will also need to keep in mind that on some development indicators, the state seems to have slipped a bit. Uh, would you blame the leader for that, or would you blame the COVID-19 for that? Would you blame the larger situation for that? Would be the question. But I think that fact cannot be ignored. And how much has that factor impacted on people in terms of their day-to-day lives? See, at one level, you talk of development indicators on some key fronts, the performance in the state being not so good. Now, that is in terms of your statistics, but how do those statistics play out at the ground? I think ultimately decides how the voters respond to that. How much has that issue really pinched them? So I think that would be something that I would be looking out to see. And I would have liked a little more of the Prime Minister's approach where you talk about not just Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, but Sabka Vishwas. Now, there was a hope that the chief minister would be a little more accommodating of all factions, of all segments of society. And as chief minister would desist using certain terms to try and talk about certain groups in the society. See, at the end of the day, in a leadership position, you need to rise above this divisiveness. You need to be a leader who is above that, those elements of divide which you see in a society. Now, a lot of people were hoping that that would have been seen a little more, and this barbs being taken at minority groups could have been something avoided, because that creates that sense of insecurity and fear. Though, of course, it also creates a majority consolidation. But is that something you would like to risk? I think is the bigger question that I would like to raise. And for me, the results would be how does this balance sheet balance itself in terms of the political performance of the government?
Correct. Very true, Dr. Shastri. And I just want to get your perspective now because, just now till 5 p.m., the voting percentage has come out, and we have seen a huge jump now. So, like, Goa has currently recorded 75.29 percentage of voting turnout, Uttarakhand 59.37, and Uttar Pradesh 60.44% of voting has happened till 5 p.m. Still, we got around 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours left for the voting to take place. So, Uttar Pradesh, in this first phase of polling, it was somewhere around like 55, 56%. Max to max, 58% was the maximum that the voting went. But now, today, we have seen 40%, 60% of voting happening till 5 p.m. Do you see that this voting definitely is going to, increase in the next 2 hours? As we have seen that, in the last 2 hours, there is a little bit of more voting happening. But do you see this kind of a paradigm shift in terms of because what BJP says that if the voting percentage is high, there are more higher chances of their party of winning the elections. Do you see?
Again, Akash, I have not seen any empirical evidence till today to show that higher voting turnout supports the incumbent party or the challenger. There is no empirical evidence to prove that fact. The only thing that higher voter turnout shows is voters would like their voice to be heard. See, it means that principal players have been able to mobilize their voters. I'm not saying any one party has been able to mobilize their voters. The different players have been able to mobilize their voters. Now, higher voter turnout for me also would also make a prediction slash projection of who is it likely to benefit becoming more difficult, because you don't know who has really benefited from that higher voter turnout. You see, when you have a low voter turnout, you can always say parties which have committed voters would be the ones who will be at an advantage. But when you have a high voter turnout, it's very difficult, unless, of course, there is some major issue in that election. There is some very high level of unhappiness with the government in that election, which we are not seeing so much in the case of Uttar Pradesh also. So I think higher voter turnout would require us to look at more into detail as to which party has been able to do the mobilization more, which are the seats at which this higher voter turnout has happened, which are the regions within that seat where the higher voter turnout has happened. So it will have to be much more of a micro study to conclude as to who has been the beneficiary of a higher voter
Correct. Very true, Dr. Shastri over there. And one more last thing before we conclude today's, this discussion. Vicky has a question. Yeah, Vicky, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Actually, the question is your predictions for the 5 states.
turnout. As I said, I wish I was an astrologer. Um, as a student of politics, I would say Manipur, Goa, and Punjab is likely to see a very divided verdict. Uttarakhand, I think it's a neck-to-neck race, and whoever is able to contain their infighting would be the one better off. Uttar Pradesh, I would say when the campaign began, I was of the view that the BJP would not find it difficult to come back to power, maybe with a smaller majority. And I would believe a smaller majority is also a setback for the BJP in their preparation for the Lok Sabha elections. What the BJP would want is a bigger majority than what they have. That I'm convinced is something which may not actually happen, a bigger majority than what you have. Now, a reduced majority also will depend on how the campaign pans out in the remaining three phases, because I would say, as in cricket, we say until the last ball is balled, we don't know who is the real winner. So I think I would want to wait for the next phases to see are there any indicators of any shift that is happening. But as of now, here too, it's a tough race, a much tougher race than what we thought it would be when it all began.
Correct. Very true. Very true. It is going to be a very
Thank you,
tough
doctor.
race for all the political parties, but definitely we have to wait and watch. We are just sitting today the second phase of polling in Uttar Pradesh. The single phase polling for Uttarakhand and Goa is still going on as we are speaking right now till 7 o'clock, and till 6 o'clock the voting will happen. We'll see on March 10th who will be the bigger party, who will win these elections. But yeah, it is a long way for both for all the political parties in the fray today. And thank you very much, Dr. Sandeep Shastri, for joining me. Thank you, Vicky, for joining me on this discussion. And thanks to all of our viewers, who joined us today in this live discussion. And we will keep on bringing you all the latest updates. And if you haven't subscribed to One India News YouTube channel as of yet, please do so that we can, give you more these kind of informative discussions each and every day when the election happens. Well, thank you very much once again, Vicky and Dr. Shastri, and it is me, Akash, signing off today from One India, and thank you for watching.